So one of the hallmarks of contribution margin analysis and variable costing is this concept of the break-even point or break-even analysis. And so this is something that the textbook comes up with a somewhat complicated formula on this, but basically what we once we have the contribution margin per unit, this is something that we would you know, what we would want to do is we would want to see, okay, well, how many units do we need to get exactly the amount of fixed costs that we have here? And so to determine that, we just divide our fixed cost by the contribution margin per unit, and that gives us 33,000 and change rounded. So this would be how many units would be needed to break even. And so one way of checking this, as we already had calculated this formula over here, is if we just went to this number here, we would see that we get exactly $0 in terms of operating income. And notice that this change comes through from before as well. So I'm going to back this up a little bit just so that we could go forth and do this. Obviously, we can't we can't have 333,000, and we can't have fractional units here. So what we probably want to do is go ahead and round up this number and then make that 0 digits, so that if we were to project our income statement from that standpoint, we would have this 334,000 units multiplied by $2 and so forth. So we double click here, we would take the units, lock those in, bring that down, and we get just over 80 cents. Don't spend that in one place, right? So then we would have essentially our break-even point there, or just operating income of almost nothing. So this tells us that at 100,000 units, we're quite a bit away from our break-even point, and this is something that is of great benefit to see where how well we are doing in terms of the break-even analysis. Sometimes you'll see this expressed in terms of so this is break-even point in units. So again, this would be the fixed costs and expenses divided by the contribution margin per unit. So we would also have our break-even point in sales dollars. And what we would need to use here is this concept of the contribution margin, the CM ratio. And the CM ratio is going to be equal to this contribution margin divided by the sales in dollars. So both of those in dollars here. So the contribution margin in dollars divided by the sales in dollars. So if we would take our contribution margin from our initial response 120 divided by 200, we'd get 0.6. This is our percentage. And so then if we were to try to figure out sales needed to break even, we would take the same fixed cost and divided that by the 60%, which gives us this 66,667 fractionally. So this is the so the CM ratio will give us this contribution margin in terms of sales dollars, and the contribution margin per unit would be able to give us this contribution, give us our break even in terms of units.